Hello and welcome back to part 3, the last part of Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns. Yay! Getting to the end of Halloween night on here. I am wearing one of my Jennifer Check costumes because I'm hoping to take some costume pictures after this. I've got the nice little cheerleading outfit on. Cute. Anyways, I forgot. Welcome back to the Nightstand Horror Hour with your friendly Ewitch, the Wicked Witch of the Web, aka Jennifer Check in her cheerleader costume tonight. I'm super excited to finish reading this book because, like I've said already, it is my most favorite to read at Halloween time, and we're getting to the end of it here. This will likely be a little bit of a shorter one because there's not that much left to read, actually. I kind of jumped the gun with my first read through because I read much more than I needed to. But that's okay because I think I might have 1 or 2 extra little fun videos come out this month as well. But without further ado, why don't we get started with chapter 19. Thank you so much for being here and reading or listening along with me. Happy Halloween. So exciting. Okay, we'll get started here with chapter 19. Just gonna make sure I've got everything I needed here. Perfect, okay. Chapter 19. Ha ha, very funny. Tabby rolled her eyes. But I saw Lee step back in fear. His knees seemed to buckle and he nearly dropped his trick-or-treat bag. Another block, a Pumpkinhead insisted, another block, and then another. Whoa, wait a minute, Tabby protested. You can't boss us around like that. I'm going home. She turned and started to walk away, but the 2 Pumpkinheads moved quickly to block her path. Let me go, Tabby protested. She darted sharply to the right, but the big pumpkin creatures floated with her. Their fiery grins appeared to grow wider and brighter. The 2 of them began circling us, floating silently. They swirled around us faster and faster until it looked as if they were surrounded by flames. A wall of leaping flames all around us. You will obey, came the crackling command. The flames pushed us from behind, forced us forward. We had no choice but to obey them. We were prisoners of their fire. The old man was standing at the door to the first house. He grinned at us as we stepped onto his front stoop. You kids are out kind of late, aren't you? He asked. Kind of, I replied. He dropped packages of chuckles into our bags. Hurry, a Pumpkinhead urged as we crossed the wet grass to the next house. Hurry! Lee's trick-or-treat bag was so heavy he dragged it along the ground. I carried mine in both hands. Tabby complained to herself, muttering and shaking her head. We did both sides of the block. I didn't see any other kids out. No cars came by. Some of the houses were turning out their lights. Hurry, a Pumpkinhead insisted. Lots more houses, lots more blocks. No way, Lee cried. No way, Tabby repeated. She tried to sound strong, but I heard a tremble in her voice. The jack-o'-lantern faces loomed over us once again. The fiery eyes stared out at us. Hurry, you can't stop now, you can't. But it's too late, I protested. And my shoe keeps coming off, Walker chimed in. We don't want to trick-or-treat anymore, Tabby told them shrilly. You can't stop now, hurry. Lots more houses, this is the best neighborhood. No way, Tabby and Lee repeated together. They started to chant. No way, no way, no way. Our bags are full, I said. Mine is starting to tear, Walker complained. No way, Tabby and Lee chanted. The 2 jack-o'-lanterns began to swirl around us again, circling faster and faster, rebuilding the wall of flames. You must not stop, one of them hissed. You must keep going. They swirled closer, so close I could feel the scorching heat of their flames. And as they swirled, they began to hiss like snakes about to strike. The hissing grew louder, louder, until it sounded as if we were surrounded by snakes. My heavy trick-or-treat bag fell from my hands. "Stop!" I screamed up at them. "Stop it! You're not Shane and Shayna." Fire leaped from their eyes. Their hisses became a high wail. "You're not Shane and Shayna," I shrieked. "Who are you?" Oh, chapter 20 already. They swirled to a stop. Bright flames licked out of their grinning mouths. Their shrill wails bounced off the bare trees, cutting through the heavy night silence. "Who are you?" I demanded again, my voice trembling. My whole body shook. I suddenly felt as if the cold of the night had seeped inside me. "Who are you? Have you done something to our friends?" No reply. I turned to Walker. The light of the flames flickered over his face. Through his black makeup, I could see his frightened expression. I swallowed hard and turned to Tabby and Lee. They were both sneering and shaking their heads. "Is this your idea of a dumb Halloween joke?" Tabby demanded. She rolled her eyes. "Wow, did you really think Lee and I would fall for this?" "Ooh, I'm scared, Lee cried sarcastically. He made his knees knock together. "Look, I'm shaking like a leaf." He and Tabby let out loud laughs. "These are real clever costumes. Great fire effects, but we know it's Shane and Shayna," Lee declared. "No way you're going to scare us, Drew." "No way," Tabby repeated. "Look." She and Lee reached out their hands. They each grabbed a pumpkin head and tugged. Whoa! They pulled the fiery pumpkin heads off the creature's shoulders, and then all four of us screamed, because the two costume figures had no heads underneath. Chapter 21. Our screams rose up shrilly, cutting through the night air like wailing sirens. The pumpkin head fell from Tabby's hand and bounced heavily on the ground. Bright orange flames shot out of its eyes and mouth. Lee still gripped the other pumpkin head between his hands, but he dropped it when the jagged mouth began to move. The fiery heads grinned up at us from the grass. Oh, I uttered a low moan of terror and staggered back. I wanted to run away, to run as fast as I could and not look back, but I couldn't take my eyes off the two heads grinning up at us from the wet grass. As I stared, my heart pounded and my legs began to shake. Someone grabbed my arm. Walker! He held on to me. His hand was as cold as ice. With his other hand, he pointed to the two headless bodies. They stood in their dark, flowing costumes. They hadn't moved. The spot between their shoulders where their heads had rested was flat and smooth, as if the pumpkin heads had been balanced there, but never attached. Never attached? Tabby and Lee huddled together beside me. Tabby's tiara was missing. Her hair had come unpinned. It fell in wet tangles over her face. Lee's trick-or-treat bag had toppled onto its side. A pile of candy had spilled over the grass, inches away from one of the pumpkin heads. The flames inside the heads danced and flickered, and then the jagged mouths began to move. The smiles grew wider. The triangle eyes narrowed. He. That's funny. The ugly laugh escaped their mouths, an evil, dry sound, more like a throat clearing, more like a cough than a laugh. He. No, I moaned. Beside me, I heard Walker gasp. Lee swallowed hard. Tabby was holding onto the sleeve of his bee costume with both hands. She pulled him back until they were standing behind Walker and me. He, the heads laughed together, flames flickering inside them. Their two bodies moved quickly. They reached out long arms and grabbed the heads up from the grass. I expected them to place the heads back on their shoulders, but they didn't. They held the heads in front of their chests. He. Another dry laugh. The pumpkin mouths twisted on the dark round faces. The eyes stared blankly at us, bright orange, then shadowy, flickering with the flames. I realized I was squeezing Walker's arm. He didn't even seem to notice. I let go and took a deep breath. "Who are you?" I called to the two creatures. My voice came out high and tiny. "Who are you and what do you want?" He, they laughed, their ugly laughs again. Ooh, chapter 22. If you haven't read this book, I honestly wonder who you think they are, because it's such a random plot twist. Take your guesses, people. Chapter 22. "Who are you?" I choked out again, shouting over their dry, crackling laughter. "Where are Shane and Shayna? Where are our friends?" Flames hissed from the two heads. Their ragged, orange grins grew wider. "Drew, let's try one more time to run away," Walker whispered. "Maybe if we catch them by surprise." We both spun around and started to run. Tabby and Lee came stumbling after us. My legs felt so wobbly and weak I didn't think I could run. My heart pounded so hard I struggled to breathe. "Run!" Walker cried breathlessly, pulling my arm. "Drew, faster!" We didn't get far. Uttering their shrill, frightening hisses, the creatures whirled around us once again, trapping us, holding us prisoner inside their circle of flames. No way we could run away. No way we could escape from them. Peering over the flying flames, I searched desperately up and down the street. No one in sight. Nothing moved. No cars, no people, not even a dog or cat. Holding their heads at their waists, the two creatures stepped up to us. They stood over us menacingly, raising the red glowing heads high above their shoulders. More houses, the jack-o'-lantern's lips pushed out the words. The red eyes stared down at us. More houses, more houses. You cannot stop, you must keep on trick-or-treating. Pick up your bags, pick them up, now, one of them growled. Her head held up between two hands, she gazed down at us, her jagged lips forming an evil sneer. We don't want to trick-or-treat, Lee wailed, holding on to Tabby. We want to go home, Tabby cried. More houses, more houses, more houses. The Pumpkinheads continued their hissing chant. They bumped us together. They bumped and pushed us. We had no choice. Wearily, we picked up our trick-or-treat bags from where they had fallen on the grass. They moved behind us, chanting in their low, dry whispers, more houses, more houses. They pushed us to the first house on the block. They pushed us onto the front stoop. Then they hovered close behind. How long do we have to trick-or-treat? Tabby demanded. The Pumpkinheads grinned together. Forever, they declared. Chapter 23, we're getting close, people. Oh, I love this one. A woman came to the door and dropped packages of Hershey Kisses into our bags. "You kids are out awfully late," she said. "Do you live around here?" "No," I replied. "We don't really know where we are. We're in a strange neighborhood and we're being forced to trick-or-treat by two headless pumpkin creatures. And they say they're going to make us trick-or-treat forever. Help us, please. You've got to help us." "Ha ha, that's good," the woman laughed. "That's very funny. You have a very good imagination." She closed the door before I could get out another word. At the next house, we didn't even bother to ask for help. We knew no one would believe us. "Your bags are so full," the woman exclaimed. "You must have been trick-or-treating for hours." We like candy a lot," Walker replied wearily. I glanced back at the Pumpkinheads. They were motioning impatiently. They wanted us to move on to the next house. We said goodbye to the woman and made our way across the front yard. Our trick-or-treat bags were heavy, so we dragged them along the grass. As we headed to the next driveway, Tabby hurried up beside me. "What are we going to do?" she whispered in my ear. "How are we going to get away from these monsters?" I shrugged. I didn't know how to answer her. "I'm so scared," Tabby confessed. "You don't think these pumpkin creatures really plan to make us trick-or-treat forever, do you? What do they really want? Why are they doing this to us?" "I don't know," I said, swallowing hard. I could see that Tabby was about to cry. Lee was walking with his head down. He dragged his bulging trick-or-treat bag behind him. He was shaking his head, muttering to himself. We stepped up to the next porch and rang the bell. A middle-aged man in bright yellow pajamas opened the door. "Trick-or-treat," we cried wearily. He dropped a little Tootsie Roll into our bags. "Very late," he muttered. "Do your parents know you're still out?" We dragged on to the next house, and the next. We kept waiting for a chance to escape, but the two creatures never let us out of their sight. They stayed right with us, keeping us in the shadows. Their eyes glowed red from the deepening fire inside their heads. "More houses," they chanted, forcing us to cross the street and do the long row of houses on the other side. More houses. "I'm so scared," Tabby repeated to me in a trembling whisper. "So is Lee. We're so scared we feel sick." I started to tell her I felt the same way, but we both gasped when we saw someone walking along the street. A man in a blue uniform. At first I thought he was a policeman, but as he stepped under a streetlight, I saw that he wore a blue work uniform. He had a blue baseball cap on his head. He carried a large black lunchbox in one hand. He must be coming home from work, I told myself. He was whistling softly to himself, walking with his head down. I don't think he saw us. Tabby changed that. "Help!" she screamed. "Sir, please help us!" The man raised his head, startled. He squinted at us. Tabby began running across the grass to him. The rest of us followed, dragging our heavy trick-or-treat bags. "Help us, please," Tabby pleaded shrilly. "You've got to save us." The four of us hurtled breathlessly into the street. We surrounded the startled man. He narrowed his eyes at us and scratched his brown, curly hair. "What's wrong, kids? Are you lost?" he asked. "Monsters!" Lee exploded. "Headless jack-o'-lantern monsters! They've captured us! They're forcing us to trick-or-treat." The man started to laugh. "No, it's true," Tabby insisted. "You've got to believe us. You've got to help us." "Hurry," Lee cried. The man scratched his hair again. He squinted at us hard, studying our faces. "Hurry, please hurry," Lee wailed. I stared back at the startled man. Would he help us? Chapter 24. I've got the Goosebumps theme song playing in my headphones, by the way, to keep me in the mood. Unfortunately, I can't play it on the video for copyright purposes, but it's fun to listen to while I read this to you. "You've got to help us," Lee pleaded. "Okay, I'll go along with the joke," the man said, rolling his eyes. Where are your monsters?" "There," I cried. We all turned back to the front yard. No one there. The Pumpkinheads were gone, disappeared. Tabby gasped. Lee's mouth dropped open. "Where did they go?" Walker murmured. "They were standing right there," Tabby insisted, both of them holding their heads in their hands. "Really?" The man let out a long sigh. "You kids have a good Halloween," he said wearily. "But give me a break, okay? I just got off work and I'm beat." He shifted his black lunchbox to the other hand. Then we watched him make his way up the driveway. He disappeared around the back of the house. "Let's get out of here," Lee cried. But before we could run, the two Pumpkinheads leaped out from behind a low hedge. The red flames hissed inside their heads. Their jagged mouths were turned down in angry snarls. "More houses," they insisted. rasping the words together. More houses. You can't stop trick-or-treating. But we're so tired, Tabby protested. Her voice cracked. Again, I saw tears wetting her eyes. Let us go, please, Lee begged. More houses, more. You can never stop, never. I can't, Lee cried. My bag is full. Look. He held out the bulging trick-or-treat bag to the Pumpkinheads. Candy bars spilled over the top. Mine is full too, Walker declared. It's filled to the top. I can't squeeze another piece of candy corn in it. We have to go home, Tabby cried. Our bags are totally full. That's no problem, one of the Pumpkinheads replied. No problem, Tabby wailed. No problem. Start eating, the Pumpkinhead ordered. Huh? We all gasped. Start eating, he insisted. Start eating. Hey, no way, Lee protested. We're not going to stand here and... The creatures appeared to rise up. Bright yellow flames shot out from their eyes. A roar of hot wind escaped their jagged, snarling mouths. The wind burned my face. We all knew what would happen if we refused to do as they said. We'd end up inside the flames. Lee grabbed a chocolate bar from the top of his trick-or-treat bag. He tore off the wrapper with a trembling hand, and he shoved the candy into his mouth. We all started to eat candy. We had no choice. I shoved a Hershey bar into my mouth and started to chew. I couldn't even taste it. A big gob stuck to my teeth, but I shoved it in more and just kept chewing. Faster, faster, the Pumpkinheads ordered. Please, Tabby begged with a mouthful of red licorice. We can't. Faster, eat, eat. I shoved an entire bag of candy corn into my mouth and struggled to chew. I saw Walker pawing through his bag, looking for something he could eat quickly. Faster, eat, the fiery heads demanded, floating over us. Eat, eat. Lee choked down his fourth musketeer bar. He grabbed a Milky Way and started to unwrap it. I'm going to be sick, Tabby declared. Faster, faster, came the raspy command. No, really, I feel sick, she cried. Eat more, eat faster. Lee started to choke. A gob of pink taffy shot out of his mouth. Tabby slapped him on the back until he stopped coughing. More, faster, the Pumpkinheads ordered. I can't, Lee cried in a hoarse whisper. The creatures leaned over him, angry flames shooting from their eyes. Lee grabbed a Crunch Bar, tore off the wrapper, and bit into it. All four of us huddled there on the curb, gobbling down candy, chewing as fast as we could, forcing it down, then shoving in some more. Trembling, frightened, feeling sick, we had no idea that the biggest horror was still to come. Chapter 25. How are we feeling, you guys? Spooky? That actually is like really spooky to me. Someone like yelling at you to eat candy, like keep eating, just like that. I don't know, that's spooky. That'll get you. Plus then you feel like sick to your stomach on top of the anxiety and everything. Oh, spooky. Anyways, 25. I can't eat any more, Tabby choked out. We'd been stuffing ourselves with candy for several minutes. Tabby had chocolate running down her chin, and I saw chocolate stuck in the tangles of her blonde hair. Lee was bent over on the grass. He held his stomach and groaned. I don't feel so hot, he murmured. He let out a long, loud burp and groaned again. I never want to see another candy bar in my life, Walker whispered to me. I tried to reply, but my mouth was full. More houses, one of the Pumpkinheads ordered. More houses, more trick-or-treating. No, please, Tabby begged. Bent over on the grass, Lee let out another long burp. Ugh, gross. It's almost midnight, Tabby protested. We have to go home. There are many houses to go, a Pumpkinhead told her, narrowing its fiery eyes. Houses forever, trick or treat forever. But we feel sick, Lee moaned, holding his stomach. We can't do any more houses tonight. Everyone has gone to sleep, Walker told the Pumpkinheads. No one will answer the door this late. They will in this neighborhood, the Pumpkinhead replied. No problem in this neighborhood, the other creature agreed. In this neighborhood, you can trick or treat forever. But, I sputtered. I knew it was no use. The fiery creatures were going to force us to keep going. They weren't going to listen to our complaints, and they weren't going to let us go home. More houses, more, trick or treat forever. Tabby helped Lee to his feet. She picked up his trick-or-treat bag and placed it in his hand. Then she brushed her hair out of her face and picked up her own bag. The four of us trooped across the street, dragging the bags beside us. The night air had grown cold and heavy. A strong breeze rattled the trees and sent brown leaves scuttling past our feet. Our parents must be worried, Lee murmured. It's really late. They should be worried, Tabby declared in a trembling voice. We may never see them again. The porch light at the first house was still on. The Pumpkinheads forced us onto the porch. It's too late to trick or treat, Lee protested, but we had no choice. I rang the bell. We waited, shivering, feeling heavy and sick from all the candy we'd forced down. Slowly, the front door opened, and we all gasped in shock. Chapter 26. Oh! A low cry escaped Walker's throat. Lee jumped off the porch. I stared at the creature in the yellow porch light. A woman with a grinning jack-o'-lantern head. Trick or treat? She asked, turning her jagged smile on us. Orange flames danced and flickered inside her head. Walker hopped off the porch and stumbled into Lee. I stared at the grinning Pumpkinhead. This is a nightmare, I told myself, a living nightmare. The woman dropped some kind of candy into my bag. I didn't even see what it was. I couldn't take my eyes off her Pumpkinhead. Are you? I started to ask, but she closed the front door before I could get the words out. More houses, the Pumpkinheads commanded, more trick-or-treating. We dragged ourselves to the next little house. The door swung open as we climbed onto the front step, and we stared at another Pumpkinhead creature. This one wore jeans and a maroon sweatshirt. The flames hissed and crackled behind his eyes and mouth. Two wide, crooked teeth were carved into his mouth, one on top, one below, giving him a silly expression. But my friends and I were too terrified to laugh. At the next house, we were greeted by two jack-o'-lantern creatures. We crossed the street and found another fiery-headed creature waiting for us at the next house. Where are we, I wondered? What is this strange neighborhood? The two Pumpkinheads forced us onto the next block. The houses here had jack-o'-lantern creatures living in them. At the end of the block, Tabby set down her trick-or-treat bag and turned to face the Pumpkinheads. Please, let us stop, she begged. Please. We can't do any more houses, Lee exclaimed, weakly. I'm so tired and I really feel sick. Please, Walker pleaded, please. I can't do another house. I really can't, Tabby said, shaking her head. I'm so frightened, those creatures in every house. She uttered a sob and her voice trailed off. Lee crossed his arms over the front of his striped costume. I'm not taking another step, he insisted. I don't care what you do. I'm not moving. Me neither, Tabby agreed, stepping close beside him. The two pumpkin heads didn't reply. Instead, they rose up high in the air. I took a step back as their triangle eyes bulged wide and their mouths stretched open. Bright orange flames flew from their eyes. And then their mouths stretched even wider and they both let out high wails. The shrill sound rose and fell through the heavy night air, rose and fell like police sirens. The pumpkin heads tilted back until their flames shot straight up to the sky, and their siren wails grew louder, louder, until I had to hold my hands over my ears. I saw a flash of light and turned to see another pumpkin head floating toward us from across the street. "Oh," I uttered a hoarse cry as two more pumpkin-head creatures hurried out of their houses. And then two more, and another creature, and another. All down the block, doors flew open. Creatures floated out, floated towards us, hissing and wailing. Flickering, dancing flames shot out from their jack-o'-lantern eyes and mouths, sending orange light into the black sky. They floated and bobbed down the street, across the dark lawns, wailing like sirens, hissing like snakes, closer, closer. Dozens of them, dozens and dozens. Walker, Tabby, and Lee and I pressed close together in the middle of the street as the pumpkin-head creatures drew near. They formed a circle around us, a circle of grinning, fiery jack-o'-lantern faces over dark-robed bodies. The circle of creatures spun around us slowly, and as they spun, their heads bobbed and tilted on their shoulders. Slowly, slowly they spun around us, and then they began to chant in their hoarse, crackly voices, "Trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat." "What do they want?" Tabby cried. "What are they going to do?" I didn't have a chance to answer her. 4 creatures stepped quickly into the middle of the circle, and when I saw what they carried in their hands, I started to scream. Chapter 27. So close, you guys. Oh, I love this book. This ending. Oh. Trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat. My scream drowned out the chanting pumpkin heads, and as the 4 creatures stepped forward, the chanting stopped. Their jack-o'-lantern heads bobbed on their shoulders. Their ragged smiles grew wider as they came near. They held their hands waist high. In their hands, they each held a pumpkin head. 4 extra pumpkin heads. "Oh no," Lee cried out when he saw them. Tabby grabbed Lee's arm in terror. What are they going to do with those heads? Bright yellow flames flickered from the eyes and grinning mouths of the 4 extra heads. "These are for you," a pumpkin head announced in a voice that sounded like sharp pieces of gravel being rubbed together. Oh, a low moan escaped my throat. I stared at the empty heads, stared at their fiery eyes, their ugly grins. "These are for you," the pumpkin head repeated, stepping closer. "These will be your new heads." "No, you can't," Tabby screamed. Her cry was cut off as one of the creatures raised a pumpkin head over her. It had a hole cut in the bottom. The creature slammed the pumpkin head over Tabby's head. Lee tried to run, but a creature moved quickly to block his way, and then slammed a pumpkin head onto Lee's head. I stumbled back, my mouth open in amazement. Hands pressed helplessly against the sides of their pumpkin heads. Tabby and Lee ran down the street, ran blindly, ran screaming into the darkness. And then the creatures turned to Walker and me and raised the empty pumpkin heads high. "Please," I begged, "please, no." Chapter 28. "Please," I cried, "please don't give me a pumpkin head." "Please," Walker joined in. And then we both burst out laughing. The 2 creatures set the empty pumpkin heads down on the ground, and then their own pumpkin heads started to change. The flames died out, the heads began to shrink and change shape. A few seconds later, Shane and Shayna had their own heads back on. And then all four of us started to laugh. We hugged each other and spun around. We danced wildly, crazily up and down the street. We tossed back our heads and laughed at the moon and stars, laughed till it hurt. It worked, guys, I exclaimed when we finally stopped celebrating. It worked. We really scared Tabby and Lee this time. They'll be scared for the rest of their lives, Walker declared. He slapped Shane on the back. Then he danced another happy dance, waving his hands gleefully above his head. We did it, I chanted joyfully. We really scared them. We finally scared them. That was so much fun, Walker exclaimed, and so easy. I stepped up to Shane and Shayna and hugged them both. Of course, I exclaimed. It helps to have two aliens from another planet as friends. Boom, there's your plot twist. Boom. Shane and Shayna are aliens from another planet. Oh no. I ripped the page a little bit. It's just too big of a plot twist. Did you see that coming if you haven't read the book? I bet you didn't. If you did, congrats. That was a crazy guess. Last chapter, you guys. Happy Halloween, everybody. Happy Halloween. Chapter 29. Whoa, take it easy, Shane warned, lowering his voice. He glanced around nervously. We don't want any strangers to know that we're not from Earth, Shayna said. I know, I replied, but that's why we didn't use your weird powers to scare Tabby and Lee before. This year, we were desperate, Walker declared. But we've got to be careful, Shayna said. Shayna rose up and turned to all the other Pumpkinhead creatures who still circled us. Thanks for your help, brothers and sisters, Shane called to them. You'd better hurry home before anyone sees that we've invaded this whole neighborhood. Waving and laughing, murmuring happily to each other, the other Pumpkinheads hurried back to their houses. In a few seconds, the street stood empty again, except for us four friends. We started walking down the middle of the street, making our way home. Walker and I dragged our heavy trick-or-treat bags beside us. Walker turned to Shane and Shayna. A smile spread over his face. When do you think Tabby and Lee will discover they can just pull off their pumpkin heads? Walker asked. Maybe never, Shayna replied, and we all started laughing all over again. We didn't stop until we reached the bottom of my driveway. Thanks again, I told Shane and Shayna. You guys were great. You were greater than great. You were awesome, Walker declared. A couple of times you even scared me, and I knew it was you. And do you know what else is great about having aliens from another planet as friends, I said. You two don't eat candy. That's right, Shane and Shayna agreed. That means Walker and I get to keep it all, I exclaimed, laughing. I suddenly had a serious thought. I stopped laughing. You know, I've never seen you two eat, I told the two aliens. What do you eat? Shayna reached out and pinched my arm. You're still really bony, Drew, she replied. You'll find out what Shane and I eat when you fill out a bit. Ooh. Yeah, Shane chimed in. People from our planet only like to eat very plump adults, so you don't have to worry for now. My mouth dropped open. Hey, you're kidding, right? I demanded. Shane? Shayna, you're not serious, right? That's a joke, right? Right? The end, you guys. Oh, that was Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns. I love this book. I love that plot twist at the end. This is one of my favorite. Happy Halloween. By the time this is posted, it will be like days away from Halloween, maybe the day before, or it is Halloween. So happy early Halloween, or just happy Halloween in general, you guys. Thank you so much for being here and listening or reading Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns along with me. It's the best time of the year. I love this book. I love this time of year. Thank you for being here. And I hope you've had an amazing and spooky month and that your Halloween is just the best yet. Oh, thank you for being here. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.